First of all, I want to thank everybody again for coming out today. It's supposed to be rainy, but it didn't rain. So we thank you for being here and not out on the water today. My name is Mark Patterson. I'm going to be doing the seminar on king mackerel fishing. I move pretty quick, so if you have any questions at all, please throw your hand up, ask me, or shout it out, and we'll go from there. First of all, if you guys have ever fished in big water, fresh water, then you can do this. Don't think that just because it's the ocean, you're just like, I can't do this, I can't do this. Yes, you can, and I'm going to tell you how to do it. The most important thing is to do it safely. I think everybody was here for Nathan's, so I don't want to be repetitive, but I do want to cover a few things that are very important. Obviously, safety, your PFD, your whistle, all the things that he talked about. But if you're going to be in the ocean, there's a couple other things you need to make sure that you have. If you notice on this is my boat, I have the extender pole. My real job is a painting contractor. This is a roller handle that didn't really quite work properly. So it became my tower with my flag, and it has a Lucy light. That light does not need a charger. It's solar powered, which is nice because that way I don't have to worry about my batteries going dead or salt corroding it. And also it blows up. You just manually blow it up. And if you hook it with a fish hook, which I have, a little super glue, and you can blow it back up again. So the flag is very important because you have to be seen. We're going to talk about king mackerel fishing today in the ocean, obviously. But the key is you want to pick a calm day, a flat day. Any of the videos that you're going to see, it's really, really calm out there. A wise man told me you'd much rather be standing on the beach wishing you were in the water than being in the water wishing you were on the beach. And that's certainly true when you're in a 14-foot kayak. If you walk out to the surf and you think just for a moment, I'm not really sure, you're not going in the ocean today. You're going to go back in the intercoastal and catch redfish, flounder, and trout and have a great day. So keep that in mind. The other thing you're going to want to make sure you do is have a Vhf radio with you. Vhf radio is extremely important. They're very affordable now. This is the Cobra. I got the white, so it's easy to see in the early morning, or should I be out there late in the evening. It floats. It actually has a little feature called burp, that if it gets wet, you press the button and it makes a little burp sound, and it expels the water. So should you need to communicate with Coast Guard, 9 and 16. Also, your partner. You never, ever really should go at all without someone with you, but you never should go in the ocean without someone. Very, very, very important. We're normally on 64, 67, one of those channels, and it's probably normally at least 3, if not 6 or 8 of us in the water at the same time. We're all on the same channel. We all look after each other. The other thing that's very important is make sure your drain plugs are in. It seems very rudimentary, but it will ruin your day really quickly in the ocean because when you're 2 or 3 miles offshore, you just can't paddle over to the bank. So the last thing everybody does before we launch is we check everybody's drain plug. Because and I actually have an extra set. You can buy them, they're really cheap. They're just put in your kayak, and that way, if you need them, you got them. So VHF radio, your drain plug, obviously your PFD. This time of year, this is something you may want to consider because the water is cold, but the fish are coming in now. I've always been amazed that people buy paddling pants that don't have booties in them. Well, I don't know about you, but the way I get in the water is I step in it. If I don't have booties in them, latex booties, it's going to be a bad cold day for me. These are the Devil's Club pants by IR, and for the money, you cannot beat them. And they actually double as waders. You can go on IR Angler. You can order them from here. They're worth every dime, and again, they will keep you warm and dry. So consider that this time of year. Any type of cold water, actually. So we need to talk about how to get your kayak to the ocean. Let's say we're going to try to go fishing today, and it's early in the morning. How do we get it to the ocean? Well, the key is you need really fluffy wheels. You need really fluffy wheels. Boondocks, right here in Thomasville, makes a device called the landing gear. It already mounts directly to your boat. I built this years and years and years and years and years ago before there was a Boondocks thing. But the key is the fluffy wheels. If you already have a kayak cart, but it has narrow wheels, it's like a really large person walking in stiletto heels on the beach. It's going to sink up and you're going to be exhausted before you get out there. So the fluffier the wheels, the better off you are. Again, Boondocks makes a a landing gear. It has the fluffy wheels, or you can get the other wheels. I'd recommend getting both. That way, no matter what terrain you're on. These wheels don't do well, except if they're on sand. They don't like nails and all that stuff. But sand is the way to go. So to get your kayak on and off the beach, you need the fluffy wheels. So consider that. Also, we want to talk about surf launching. That's the other great thing about having a flag, because when I bring my kayak to the beach and I have my flag out there, the rule of thumb for me is I fish Oak Island, the beach faces south. I want a north wind. Rule of thumb is if my flag is blowing out to the ocean, I can get in the ocean, because that north wind's going to lay the beach flat. It's going to lay those waves flat. If I get out there and during the middle of the day I see my flag turning around going to the beach, I need to go to the beach too. Because by the time I get back there, those waves are going to start building up. So watch your flag, pay attention to your wind. Also, when you launch, Oak Island's wonderful because it has big water towers. So you can be at Yopon Reef and look back and say, okay, I'm on the second tower. I'm still in line with the beach. I haven't drifted too far because now the buoy's gone. Don't ask why. But you can look at the water tower. You have a nice target. Also, with your Vhf radio, you can put it on the weather. Should you have any alerts, anything like that, you'll know. Also, some young, hip members of our club, not me, told me about this wonderful app. It's called Windy, W-I-N-D-Y. If you have not downloaded that app for your phone, you're going to want to do it. W-I-N-D-Y. It is an amazing app, and when we have a hurricane, look at the app, and it looks like a giant black hole. It shows the wind currents all up and down the United States. You can zoom right in, and it's very accurate, and it will save you a lot of time and effort trying to figure out exactly what looks like it's moving in. This Windy app is a great app. So, all right, we've already checked the weather. We don't see any storms or anything coming in. We got a north wind. We've got our kayak to the beach. Now we got to get out to get to the fish. How do we do that? Well, this is the method that I use. For me, the best way to do it is I paddle out past the breakers. Some people wade out. Some people drop their fins really quickly. What I do is I'm picking a day that, again, you'll see on the video that it's pretty calm. So I'm able to wade out about knee deep, which for me is not too deep. And I don't know if I could drop my fins at knee deep for me. But I'm going to drop my fins. I'm going to jump in through the left side. I'm always going to enter and exit my kayak from the left side. Obviously, when I do that, this rod holder will not be on. So I'm going to go ahead and have my paddle across the kayak, wade out knee deep, use my handles, stay low, hop in, and paddle out past the breakers. I'll have my fins directly here. I will leash my fins to the kayak. Those fins are very expensive. As long as they're attached to the kayak, you can find them. It's amazing how you can't find them in a foot of water should you turn over and drop them. So as soon as I can drop the fins, I drop the fins. Another good tip, a pro tip for you, before you launch your kayak, drop your rudder. When you're on the beach, right before you pull it in, pull your rudder so that your rudder drops. It'll sit right there on the beach. The reason being is, if, like in my case, you're down there for 7 or 10 days and you're in the ocean every day, by about day number 6 or 7, that salt water is going to tighten up your rudder cable. I didn't think this, I learned it. So learn from my mistakes. When you jump in that kayak and you pull your rudder, if that cable has gotten tight from the salt, making that cable, that rope underneath there tight, and doesn't drop, you have a problem. So go ahead and drop it, and I just give it a little tug, and that way I see it fall down, and then I know when I pull it into the water, the rudder's going to drop. So please, please, please make sure your rudder's down. If you've ever jumped in one and the rudder not work, you got a problem. Okay, once we start paddling, and we see that first wave, it's a natural hesitation to pull back. You don't want to do that. It's just like surfing or snowboarding. You want to lean into the wave, go into the wave, and maybe increase your speed a little bit and just take that hit. But again, if you've picked a calm day, shouldn't be much of a hit, if any. That's the key. Also, stand on the beach. Waves come in patterns. You should be able to look and say, okay, here comes a set of waves. It looks like when the beach gets flooded. See, observe the water line. If the water's touching your feet and the next 2 waves come in shorter, you want to wait till that water comes up to you because it floods the area. It's easier for you to get out. The waves are not going to be as able to build up if the beach is flooded. So study your waves, take your time, watch your friend, see how he does, and then you can go in after him. You've dropped your rudder, you're paddling, you're going forward. As that first wave comes, lean into the wave. The bow of your kayak is going to be lifted. If you lean forward, it'll tip you forward. If you lean back, you're going to stay back. You don't want to stay back. And the reverse is true when you're coming in. When you're coming into the beach and the wave's coming from behind you a little bit, you want to lean back to keep the bow up. Because once the bow hits the sand, you will stop. Well, that'll stop. You may be ejected. But you want to stay back as far as you can. And I'll go ahead and cover returning. The way I do it is I keep my depth finder on. When my depth finder shows about 3.5 feet, 3.5, depending on how calm it is, I'm going to jump out of the left side. I have my PFD on. If I jump out and it's a little deeper than I expect, not a big deal. I'm going back to the back of the kayak, grab the back of my kayak, and I can either push it in or swim it in. So again, you don't want to, this is not a surfboard. You're not riding it into the beach. I pull my fins out when I get in about 4 or 5 feet of water. Again, they're strapped to the H-rail, so then I'm going to break my paddle out, paddle in, jump out, we're good to go. Yes, sir?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
This is 14 feet?
That's 14.6, yes, sir.
Wider than most kayaks?
To my knowledge, this is the widest kayak on the market. 38. It's
what would be what would be the smallest you would recommend for any type of ocean?
On a good day, I would always take a 14-foot boat.
My 10-foot would not go too well.
Here's the problem with the 10. It sounds like a great idea because you have great maneuverability. But the problem is, that's correct, the stability, and it wants to, is it a paddle craft or a pedal? When you have a smaller boat, it wants to walk. The more you, and that, if you're going long distances, the shorter boat will work you to death.
You wouldn't take anything other than a sit on top.
No, I wouldn't take anything but a sit on top anyway. Okay, but the 10 will work you to death because you, right? And we all, when I started, the ride by Wildy was the only boat out there. It was a green trash can color, and that was the only boat out there. And I was glad I was in my late 20s because that would work me to death. Just the working of it. So, yeah, that's the longer, wider, better.
So this is 38 and 14, right?
Yes.
14 is 38, the 12 is 36.
Yeah, and the 12 would probably be, the 14 tracks so much straighter and faster because it's bigger. So, okay, so we've launched, now we're out there. Now we got to get bait, which is where Thomas Farlow, my movie producer. There's 2 ways to catch your bait. This is the old method. I don't want to say old method, but this is a method we used for years. So basically what we're doing is, it's called a jerk rig. And once we bring this little fish in, I'll show you. What it basically is once you're out there, notice the flag. The flag's going out to sea. You can see the beach to your left. See how calm it is? I'm basically in a giant lake. The menhaden are pressed right up against the beach. I'm probably in 8 or 10 feet of water. And what I'm able to do is make my cast and let that rig, which I'm going to show you, sink down into the bottom. And then I'm going to jerk, and I jerk up and get the menhaden or pogies, depending on. So here's the little guy. Can you stop it, Thomas?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If you notice, the important thing of what I'm doing here is this is going to save you some embarrassment, some pain, and a trip to the emergency room. The way the rig works is you have your swivel. You have 20-pound monofilament. You have 3 treble hooks that you drop off the side. You put a 1-ounce weight on the bottom. You cast that across your big school of menhaden, open your bail, let it sink all the way to the bottom. If you slowly tighten up, you'll feel those menhaden hitting that line. They're so thick. A good snatch, jerk, and you'll hook them. But here's the key. When you bring that slimy fish into your boat, grab the weight with your hand. Now you've pulled him tight. If you just drop him between your legs, luckily, maybe it'll get you in the shorts. If not, you're going to have a bad day. So go ahead, you can keep it going, please. So that's how the best way to, and even here, I'm trying to control the fish. The gloves help because it grips the fish better. Once I get him to the deck, now once you get control of the fish, drop him over the side, put him in your bait cage. Can you stop it there? Okay, now, a couple other tips that are going to be helping. My anchor trolley is on my right side. I have nothing on the left side. The reason for that is just what I did. If I drop those treble hooks over this side, You've hooked them, haven't you? Once you drop the treble hooks over this side, you've just hooked your anchor trolley. Every time, it seems like. So my left side, because I enter the boat, I exit the boat, I gaff the fish, any hooks or anything stays to my left side. That way it's nice and smooth coming over. When I put my bait fish out, I always put him out over the left side because he can't swim into anything that's going to cause me any trouble. As soon as you get your bait fish, you put him in your bait tank. You've worked hard to get that live bait. It's called live bait for a reason, because it's live. So you want to make sure you have that bait fish, the tank's working well. I'll even cheat. What I'll do is I'll take those bubble makers, and I've got a screw. If you come up here and see, I'll screw a bubble maker into there. I've drilled a hole through here, and I'll drop it through there, so I'll really oxygenate. That fish is like Lance Armstrong. He's jacked up by the time he comes out of there. I've really aerated that fish. So that's the way we used to catch them, and it works. It works. All right, can we go to the next one, please, sir? What we've done now is I contacted a guy because they don't do that in tournaments for big king mackerel. They use a net. So what we did here is, okay, you can see how calm it is. That's a shot with this pole. You can go right up to the schools of Menhaden, throw your cast net over, let it sink. Now, what's unique about this cast net is the guy that I had make them, this is an inch mesh. It's super heavy, and it sinks super fast. You're not going to find this net in retail stores because they don't make one that's 4 feet with that size mesh and that size weight. You need that heavy mesh and that wide mesh and the heavy, yeah, it works well, and the heavy net because you want it to sink fast. If you throw your conventional cast net, which is 3 or 4 foot, and you can see the little flip to the Menhaden just in to the left, if you look around just a little bit out of the frame. So then at that point, what you can do is just dump your little fish out, and then quickly, the beauty of that is a couple of things. Number one, obviously it's less stress on the fish. You don't hook the fish. You don't bloody the fish up. Now, here's the key. Traditionally, if you're throwing off a boat or out of the surf, you put this around your wrist. You don't do that in the ocean. Because I don't know whether I got a 50-pound drum or a 150-pound blacktip shark in that school. So what I'll do is I'll just hold it just like this in my hand. So then, when I make up my net, and this is the way I do it, so I didn't have to stand, I stayed seated. The way you do it is, all right, now this is my kayak seat. That's the other beauty of the PA is you sit up high enough. So I'm going to fold it over, spread out the net, and if it's a 4-foot net, I'll take 4 loops. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I grab it and open it. Now, I've got it. It's like a bullfighter's cape. Then it's easy. I won't go through it. But it's easier to throw the net. Because again, I'm in a kayak. I'm not in a boat. So I'm literally, when I'm looking down, I can see the Menhaden. I just got to get the net to open. That's all I got to do. And sink faster than they can swim out from under me. Which is
About 8 feet of water?
about 8 feet. Yep. And that's exactly how I do that. But that is how we get the bait. Okay, again, notice I'm throwing over the left side. Everything that exits the boat exits the left. And everything that comes in the boat comes in on the left. So now we've got our bait. Now, we've got 2 things we can do after that. Well, 2 ways to do it. You got to troll, you got to find the king mackerel. The king mackerel are not going to be in the 8 feet of water. Normally they're going to be in 18 plus feet. So, you can either put your king mackerel rigs out, which we're going to cover in a second, and just free troll them. So they're back out there with no floats or anything on them. I personally don't like that method. You're here to hear how I do it. This is how I do it. Other people will say different things. I put them on a float. I always put them on a float, and here's why. If I just put 2 rods out and have those Menhaden out there, and I'm trolling, I have no idea where they're at. If I get tired, I'm eating a candy bar or a power bar. If I'm eating a power bar or having something to drink or running my mouth on the radio or listening to my iPod or something, those fish could be under my boat. they could be behind me, they could get all tangled up. But, so what I devised is, this is called a ready rig float. And to my knowledge, there may be other floats that work this way. This is just what I use. One quick note. When you're launching or when you're returning, no hooks at all, ever, on your rods and your reels. That's what they make snap swivels for. Because one day, no matter how calm it is, you're going to think, oh, I'm fine, and leave your rods with hooks and stuff on them, and you're going to slip in the surf and just reach out and grab stuff. And when you do, you're going to grab your hooks. And it doesn't take that much longer to reach in, get your rig out of your plastic bag, and clip it on, and then you're good to go. So, no hooks, and that includes your jerk rig, should you go with that method. Still keep it in a plastic bag. Rig your little jerk rod, which I didn't cover. It's just a lightweight, just a little crappy rod. You want the lightest rod you can use because you don't want to jerk it so hard you're pulling the hooks through the fish. You just want to hook the fish and then bring them in. So what I've devised is, and what I do is, you take your little slip float. What's beautiful about this slip float, and you can come up and take a look at it in the end, is it's got a snap at the top that your line goes through. You open it up and your line feeds freely through it, okay? And I'll put it about 6 inches from my swivel because I want that bait right on the top because I can look at my floats and say, that bait fish is 3 feet under that float. I know exactly where he is, which is going to come in handy in a moment when I tell you how that works. So the other thing that's great about these floats is when I depress the top, the bottom bumper's open. That's what holds my line. So when I get the strike, it breaks free and the bobber slides up and down the line. So I'm free to fight the fish. And it worked so well, it doesn't even register. So what you're looking for is, like I say, they're ready rigs. You can buy other floats, I'm sure, but for me, I know these work. Now, the key here is I'll troll 2 rods. I'll troll one out of the right and one out of the left. I'll stagger them. One I'll have about 50 feet back, 60 feet back. One I'll have about 100 feet back. I want them pretty far back because blacktip shark also like those menhaden. Blacktip shark also like to jump. And you don't want a 100-pound blacktip shark jumping in the kayak. You want him jumping out there. And normally with the wire, the small size wire that we use, normally those shark are going to bite through that anyway. You'll get 1 or 2 good jumps, and then first shark of the year is fun. After that, you're like, oh, no shark. So I would recommend going out with about 10 or a dozen pre-rigged rigs. My tackle box looks really advanced. I'll show you. This has been with me for about 20 years. This is all I'm taking out there. Yes, sir.
If you do happen to catch a shark, I've been told, I don't know if it's true or not, we used to, you have to cut your line up pretty far because the other fish can tell that a shark's been on there. Is that correct or not?
I've never heard that. I'm not saying it's not true. But normally on this little 40-pound wire, he's cutting it way back out there, so he's gone. But anyway, so my little rigs consist of, and I'll cover, and on this rod, I only use mono. This is 20-pound mono. Yes, you can get more line on it if you use braid, but braid does not stretch. I'm using really small hooks. These are number 4s. If I go to braid and that fish makes that initial run and I put too much pressure on that thumb to slow him or just to kind of make sure the hook's set, I've lost a lot more king mackerel with braid than mono. And honestly, as soon as I get the run, if I get a strike on my right one, your first order of business is to get your other rod in. You got to get that other rod and just sweat it out while the line screams off the other one. Then you spin your kayak around and you start following the fish and trying to run him down, and I'll show you that in a minute. But what I want to cover is how to hook this bait fish. That's very important. I use 3 hooks. I use a J hook, a little small J hook that goes through the nostrils on this menhaden. The next hook goes right behind the fin, the dorsal fin. And then the next hook is your most important hook. Your fish already has a hole. It's called an anal vent. You go ahead and insert one of those barbs into that anal vent. The reason being, when that king mackerel comes after this fish, he's going to come up normally from the bottom. So he's going to come up like this. That's the king mackerel mouth. See, there's a big eye. Thank you. So if you put this hook in the back, you'll get this bait fish back and it'll have little dots, just like this. And you will not hook that king mackerel. I've had two.
Most people think it's going to come in from behind.
They don't. They come up because your bait is being held like that. It's being held vertically. So he's coming up like this. I've had two guys that should have won the classic but didn't because they got bait fish back that had been pinned like that. So without the hook in the center. And really, because you got the float and you're moving really slow, it doesn't affect the action of the fish when this hook is here. So that's, and again, you can come up and take a look at the rigs, but if you don't listen to anything else, put that hook there, you're going to be all right. Trust me on this. So using your mono, when people say, well, how do you hook the fish? You really don't. That king mackerel's moving so fast that when he grabs that bait, he's hooked. Your job is to not lose the fish. So my drags are super light. These reels are the Cedros 12s. I think I have 600 yards of 20-pound line. So I don't have to worry about running out of line. I would rather take my time with the fish, put a little lighter drag, use my thumb. It's just something you'll have to practice with. So let's roll that clip when we get to that part. Okay, so I've got the fish on. And if you notice my little feet are about as fast as I can go to try to run him down. I want to keep tension on the rod, but not so much tension that I'm pulling the hooks. So when he stops, I stop. And I slowly work the fish. You really got to just feel the fish. You can see my float coming in at about 11 o'clock, and it's riding up on the line. That's another beauty of using the float, because I can know exactly where the fish is underneath me. So as we get closer, I want to keep him at an angle. I don't want him to get straight in front of my boat. And I also want a long enough rod that I can go around the front of the boat, the bow of the boat. I want to keep him to my left normally because of the way I gaff the fish. And again, my left side's clean over there. My port side's clean. So when he wants to go, I gotta try to keep him on my left, because if he comes up on my right and I miss him with the gaff and hook my anchor line, I got a problem. So I'm keeping him over there. He's directly under me now. And what I'm doing is, this rod's a pretty stiff rod, which is nice because should he surge under the boat, I can keep the rod away from me and kind of control him a little bit more. There's a limit to what you can do. So I'm slowly going to pump him up. All right, now we've gotten a little bit closer. And you can see the key here is my butt stays in the seat. There we go. Once we gaff the fish, we bring him across the front, and I use my left foot to step on his head. There we go. Because if I step on his head, I can control the hooks. So, what? No, I'm not barefooted. I'm going to wear my good grippy shoes. So, again, what we've learned from that is I bring him to the left side every time. I gaff him to the left. I bring him over the left. This being short, it's handy. I can control him with my foot because I can control the head of the fish and pin him down to the bottom of the boat. That's how we get him in the boat. What I normally do at that point is I have this fish bag. It's a Pro Cooler, Ice Mule Pro Cooler fish bag, which is great. It straps onto the front. I just cut the hooks, dink, 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 cut the hooks really quick and slide them in the fish bag.
You don't bother to take the hooks out?
No, I don't bother taking. I don't want to fight the fish in the boat. I use my wire cutters that are right here, and I just cut them off, dink, dink, and slide them right in there. And that's how I get the fish in the bag.
So there's no catch and release on king mackerel?
You can keep 3. You can keep 3 after that. Yes, you can catch and release them. I guess you could tail grab them and try to get them in the... Yeah. No, once you gaff them, you pretty much got him for that. But you can catch and release as many as you want.
Now, is there a reason you just don't? The tail is. I've never caught a king mackerel.
Well, the reason is, number one, I don't. That's a bigger fish. It's pretty big, and I can control him with the gaff. Whereas if I'm trying to reach for the tail, I got to get that close to him. So I know once I stick him with the gaff from underneath, then I've got him, because that's going to go through that's going to hold the fish. Then I can use my elbow to bring him across the body. See, I just don't know if I grab that fish by the tail, I just don't think he's going to be I don't think he's going to be too cooperative. So again, once I bring him over and across and step on him, we're done. So
Ice in that cooler, or is that just?
yeah, I do.
There is ice in that.
There's already ice in the cooler, so I just bring him straight in the cooler.
Fit in that cooler.
I know, it's nice. A good picture with the tail hanging out. So now the other good thing about the float that's very important is the way I caught those fish that day is when you're out there in the ocean, once you've caught your bait fish close to shore, because they're easier to catch close to shore because you're in shallower water, your net doesn't have to sink as far, nor do you have to jerk them from as far. If they're at 8 feet, obviously you're an 8-foot water column versus 28 feet. Those fish came off the Yopon Reef in about 31 feet of water. But here was the key. When I was going out to the reef, I could see a school of menhaden about as big as that area, and they were getting eat up. Okay? Now, if I just had my menhaden out free, I can kind of guesstimate how to get in there. But if I have this float rigged up, I'll erase all that. Yeah. If I have my float, this is the beauty of the other beauty of the float. Leave him down there. So if I'm in the kayak, and I'm not a very good kayak drawer, obviously. Okay, but if I see, here's my bait fish with the bigger fish in it. That's even going to be worse. He's happy. Okay, if I've got my lines out, and here's my float, and here's my bait fish, and I'm moving this way, I can control that kayak and move it into position because I know where my float is. I can take that float right into the center. Once I do that, I know my bait's in the center, and also know that these fish are going to recognize this guy's got a problem. And he's going to spread away, they're going to spread away from my guy, and he's going to get eaten by something. It's either going to be a black-tip shark or a big bluefish or a Spanish mackerel or a king mackerel. So I can control exactly where I'm going with those floats. So that's the beauty of the float. And then again, to return back to the beach, we're taking all our hooks and everything off about 400 or 500 yards out. We're going to sit back behind the surf zone and watch the waves come in. Watch the waves come in. And if you've got your Vhf radio and you've already got a friend on the beach, you can say to him, hey, what does it look like? What do the sets look like? If you're the lead guy, you're going to kind of be the guinea pig. But on a calmer day, it really shouldn't be that bad. Watch your depth finder. When I get in about 5 or 6 feet of water, I pull my fins, break out the old paddle, which is also leashed to the boat. That way I don't lose it. I start paddling in 3.5 feet, hop out the left side. Now, this is another, along with these two tips. When you're exiting your kayak, always exit to the ocean side. Because if you exit to the beach side, this boat will beat you to death when the wave comes. And Thomas and I have a good friend who's having knee surgery 2 weeks from now because he exited to the wrong side, turned around and thought he was okay. And it doesn't look like the boat's that heavy, but when it turns and then you got all that water pressure, and it seems to always hit you right there. You never take it in the thigh. Yes, sir.
Question. When you go out, you look for a straight, because there's sandbars, there's points, and there's do you hit any of those spots, because that's where waves pop up unexpectedly? At where I'm fishing at Oak Island, once you get in about 8 feet of water, you're not going to have any problem. No. And we put in at 49th Street. I don't know if you guys are familiar at Oak Island. If you put in at 49th Street where we do the Oak Island Classic, it's a straight 2-mile shot to the reef.
The mackerel and the drum seem to prefer the open, that area, the big open area.
Yeah.
As far as points.
Yeah, and the Cape Fear River feeds out, so you got a nice confluence of a little bit of fresh water mixing around, which makes a lot of plankton, the zooplankton for the bait fish, so it's a lot of life right there. Yes, sir.
Not done the Oak Island Classic, but thinking about it, do you help each other out a lot?
We are extremely helpful.
Especially to the neophytes?
Yeah, oh yeah. If you'll go on our NCKFA YouTube channel, there's plenty of video. We're all out there pushing everybody off. We're not so keen on catching you coming back in. That's because we got a boat coming at you. But we'll make sure you get out. Should you have an incident coming in, we'll pick up all your stuff. We'll pick up.
Unusual for somebody that's been doing it for years and years to actually flip.
No, and it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. I hadn't turtled in probably 6 or 7 years. 3 years ago, I was out there with like 8 or other guys, and we're all blah, just blah blah blah. And I was like, all right, boys, I'm going to go in. And I was in it was just a rogue wave. That's all I can say. It was a rogue. I had it timed perfectly. And I even had made the announcement. I was like, all right, boys, I'm going to go in and get some pizza. I'll meet you on the beach in like 20 minutes. And they're like, okay. But what I didn't count on was the tide was going out. And so it was a double whammy. The tide had going out, and my battery had died on my depth finder. So I couldn't really tell how deep I was. So I thought, I'm okay about right here. So I jumped out, and there was no bottom. Yeah. So as the tide pushed me back out, as I'm holding on to the back of the kayak, and I floated by my friend William Ragalewski, who's probably a SEAL up in Virginia Beach at the base up there. He said, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I really need a little help." So he grabbed the front of my kayak and just paddled, So it's just part of it. It's going to happen. The key is, honestly, if you don't have any hooks, all your rods are stored in the tube. You use your clip. You use your little grippy thing to make sure your rods are gripped up. You're gripped up. All your things are secured. Honestly, you should be okay. I mean, if you exit the boat it's really hard for the boat to turn over without you in it. We're normally the catalyst to make it actually. So if you exit the boat's normally going to come to shore in this position. I mean, honestly, that's just the truth. Is when we
different tournaments at Oak Island, you can do the inshore.
You can do the
inshore. You don't have to do the offshore.
Right. No. We have an inshore and off. And if you wanted to come and do, when we're out there doing the offshore, and we have meet and greets, we do stuff like that. And again, if you're on our website or on our Facebook page by September, once the false albacore starts showing up, people will be putting up posts. Hey, we're going to 49th. We'll be there on Saturday, and you'll have between 6 and 15 to 20 guys. If the big drum are in, you'll have 30 guys just there on a Saturday or Sunday catching them.
I've spent a couple of years just watching the offshore occur. I was fishing the inshore, but Jamie Dennison, somewhere finally convinced me to come do the offshore. He swore up and down he wouldn't let me dive around.
And he didn't. So, but again, everybody does a really good job of helping everybody out. And with no disrespect to the inshore guys or anybody else, there's a little bit different mentality normally with the ocean guys, because you really have to count on everybody to really help you. And everybody knows that going in. It's more like all of us against the fish. Yes, we want to win, but we know, hey, if you're in the water or you forgot your drain plug and you need some help.
You're telling me us smaller kayaks can get in the inshore portion of it.
Oh, yeah, you're fine. We do inshore and offshore. So
The offshore, the main objective is to make sure everybody comes back in.
yeah, and we're really good about that. We have water rescue on the beach with us. And everybody has to be in back. We get your phone number. We're all on the same channel. And knock on wood, we've been really blessed. Everyone has done a great job because we take it so seriously. And we tell them, look, if you guys aren't back on time and water rescue has to try to find you, you better have a problem. And we have spotters on each end. There are 2 piers. There's the Ocean Crest Pier and the old Yopon Pier. We have spotters, and you have to stay between those 2 piers. So if you go you've only got really about 3.5 miles between those areas. So if you go past those, we know it. So we got it's the ocean, so you can't it's serious, but the area we're in is no bigger than Bugs Island.
Wetsuit top, dry suit top?
No, it's warm. That's why we do it in October. The water temperature's still warm. If the water temperature gets down to around 72, normally that's when the king mackerel show up. So there's normally between 69 and 78. Yeah.
We have been out there before too, when the wind picked up, the tide, everything, the conditions changed, and we've canceled it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of days, that's my job. In the morning, I get out there and, I talk to water rescue, and I'm like, all right, guys, pack it up. We're not launching today. And everybody gets mad, and I'm like, well, the ocean's still open. You can go, and nobody ever goes. because they like to complain about, I can't go, but then they don't really want to go. Yeah, I mean, again, the most important part about the fun is knowing you're doing something that you can only keep things so safe, but we keep it as safe as you possibly can.
Is there a safe distance you stay from big boats or fishing?
I wish that's what the flag's for. I keep an air horn in there too. I would rather have them give me the finger and yell at me than run over me. So if they get within about 100 yards, I'm going to blow the air horn. And that's the other reason I have a bright boat. I pick the brightest color I can, because when you're on the beach and you're looking out at the ocean, you can see this guy from a long way off. Maybe not the case with a camouflage or a blue or a green. So, and I do a lot of catfish and stuff at night, so I want to be seen then too. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to get my toys out of the way, and Jamie Dennison's going to be next. Thank you.